Former Daily Show correspondent Samantha Bee did a segment on her show Full Frontal on TBS where she talked about the Bernie or busters that were protesting at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia, and throughout the entire clip she teased them and implied that they're being unreasonable without addressing their main concern. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that clip, and then we'll pick out some parts of it that I take issue with.
But the progressive heavy petting session was occasionally interrupted by a handful of Bernie or bust diehards who, upset at the undemocratic fact that the other candidate got over 3 million more votes than theirs, responded by constructively screaming abuse at anyone traitorous enough not to be screaming abuse.
And tonight, this night, we're going to nominate a woman. That would be the ending. I may cry again tonight. I said it a few years ago.
Guys, if you're gonna protest your perceived disenfranchisement, maybe don't do it by heckling the guy who wrote the book on protesting actual disenfranchisement. John Lewis has spent more than 50 years fighting a civil rights battle that's not yet over. Want to see how bitter he is?
I'm so happy. I'm happy. It's my song.
If John Lewis can overcome being beaten by cops for securing black Southerners the right to vote, you can overcome the fact that a lot of them voted for Hillary. You think incremental progress is bullshit? Look at the entire Wyoming delegation proudly wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts. Wyoming! Cheney country is getting woke! So, what do these Bernie or bust motherfuckers want? How do they plan to get it? And when will it be safe to go back on Facebook? I sent Alana Harkin to find out.
Heading into the convention, the Democratic Party was unified to beat Trump.
Bernie or bust!
While the Bernie or bust people were unified to beat the Democrats.
We're voting for Bernie. We're pushing Bernie.
Hell no, we're not voting for Hillary. Hell no, this is not okay.
We do not want Hillary. That's why we're here protesting. We do not want her.
Do you think that Bernie still has a chance?
Absolutely. I mean, I've only ran into all of 2 Hillary Clinton supporters today. Everybody else I've seen walking around Philly has got Bernie shirts on. Now, something just doesn't add up, you know?
I also think it's where you are right now. I'm so confused, because isn't Bernie endorsing Hillary?
He has endorsed Hillary. He still has not conceded.
He said, watch out for the roll call vote today. We're going to see.
We have 1,900 delegates here. We'll see what happens tonight.
Oh.
A secret plan. So I went to watch the roll call vote to see Bernie pull off this coup once and for all.
And I move that Hillary Clinton be selected as the nominee of the Democratic Party for President of the United States.
It was a tough loss. They'd worked hard, but now they were finally ready to unite the party with yet another protest. And like any domestic dispute, what began with shouting ended with the silent treatment.
Why? This is the first time everybody's been quiet. It's like going to the spa.
But these sad mimes still couldn't stop Hillary from breaking out of the Phantom Zone to rule us all. So now, are you Bernie or busters on board?
What could Hillary do to win your vote?
Nothing. Crawl in a hole. Yeah. Drops to hell where she belongs.
But by not voting for Hillary, you're kind of voting for Trump. Yay!
There's also Jill Stein.
In fact, a quarter of Bernie supporters are effectively siding with Trump.
And if they didn't want Trump to win, they should have let Bernie have the nomination.
But that's not how voting works. And besides, Bernie won the platform.
Do you feel that this movement has really pushed Hillary to the left?
Hillary Clinton has literally stolen, almost word for word, Bernie's platform.
Isn't that a good thing?
I mean, absolutely not. I mean, that's just a further testament of how she is willing to do and say anything to get where she wants to be in office.
Even if she's saying and doing the right things?
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're saying and doing the right things.
Just say it. You think she's a bitch.
I would sooner vote for Donald Trump than I would Hillary Clinton.
I honestly think Hillary is worse than Trump.
I think she's much more dangerous than Trump.
He might turn out to be the lesser of 2 evils!
Trump! Imagine that!
No, he's 100% the greater two evils.
If it's going to be Trump for 4 years, brace yourself. It's going to be a ride.
And what about all the Muslims and Latinos who are going to be shipped out of the country?
I believe that's what our senators and congressmen have to put a stop to.
Do you feel extra comforted because you're white and you don't have to deal with that problem?
To tell you the truth, I am in the bubble, yes.
So you're fine with the guy who's getting 100% of the white supremacist vote?
They're bigots, they're racists, all that, I get that. But they realize the need for the complete burning down of the corrupt political system.
You want to be on the same page as the Republicans?
At least we're on the same page with somebody.
Was this the unity they had hoped for?
Lock her up! Lock her up! Lock her up!
Where was I? What party is this?
I'm a Democrat. I am a Bernie bro.
You know, bro, it might be just about time to drop the word Bernie.
So at one point she said Bernie Busters were upset at the undemocratic fact that the other candidate got over 3 million more votes than theirs. Is this true? Technically, yes. But the question that you want to ask, Samantha, is why did she get 3 million more votes than Bernie Sanders? Because the DNC put their finger on the scale for her the entire time. They looked at ways to smear Bernie Sanders. They colluded with the media to push certain narratives about Bernie Sanders. It was revealed that they slandered his supporters and referred to them as Bernie Bros, which is what you keep calling us in this segment, which is clearly made up. And also, the election fraud disproportionately benefited Hillary Clinton, even if it's the case that she's not directly implicated in it. So when they say that the election was stolen, is that somewhat hyperbolic? In a way, yes. But are they right to feel as though they were cheated and feel as though the whole Democratic primary was rigged? Absolutely. And you completely avoided that the entire time. If this were any other election cycle and your candidate just lost fair and square, then I would have no problem with you disagreeing with us and saying that Bernie Busters are ridiculous. But since it's been revealed with the WikiLeaks DNC scandal that they were rigging it for Hillary Clinton, well, this primary wasn't fair. And if you could rehold the primary under fair conditions where the debate schedule wasn't rigged, where they didn't try to slander Bernie, where they didn't ban his access to Van right before the Iowa caucus, Bernie Sanders could have very well won. And one report estimates that Bernie Sanders lost 184 delegates due to election fraud. So election fraud was so rampant, irrespective of the rigging that the DNC did, that Bernie Sanders might have actually won even without the election fraud. So what we're saying is that Hillary Clinton cheated, but you're not addressing that. Now, she also took issue with them heckling John Lewis. Now, what she's doing here is committing the fallacy of relative privation, which means that, well, you know what, you're worried about this one issue, and I see that, but there's this issue, and this issue is more important, so unless we correct this issue, you can't worry about that issue. So because the civil rights movement is still ongoing, we can't worry about election fraud. We have to worry about the civil rights movement because that's more important. And look, are there different levels of salience for political issues? Of course, but it's a fallacy because as humans, we have the capacity to care about more than just one issue. So it's a way to dismiss someone's argument without actually hearing out the merits and saying, well, this is better, this argument is more important, this issue is more important, so we need to care about that. Why aren't you caring about that instead? And really what you're doing is you're dodging the overall concerns that they're bringing up, and it's unfair. Now, furthermore, John Lewis is a member of the political establishment that made up lies about Bernie Sanders during the primary just to benefit Hillary Clinton. So, for example, he said that he never saw Bernie Sanders marching during the civil rights era, but he did see Hillary Clinton, who was campaigning for anti-civil rights activist Barry Goldwater at the time and wasn't there. Furthermore, he sat idly by and watched as African-American protesters were escorted out of a Hillary rally, and he did nothing about it. They were chanting Black Lives Matter and they were kicked out. Now, that doesn't discredit his decades of civil rights activism, but it does illustrate that, like all people, he's not perfect. Now, another point in there, they said by not voting for Hillary, you're kind of voting for Trump. And they even put up the bullshit graph where they set up this false dichotomy. So that way, if you're not with Clinton, you're with Trump automatically, even if you're voting against Donald Trump and voting for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. All right, well, let's consider that for a second. If you're not voting for Hillary Clinton, you're effectively voting for Donald Trump. All right, well, guess what the Republicans who refuse to endorse Donald Trump are being told? If you're not voting for Donald Trump, you're voting for Hillary Clinton. So they criticize their support for Gary Johnson. So I guess since us voting for Jill Stein equals a vote for Donald Trump, and them voting for Gary Johnson, who equals a vote for Hillary Clinton, who's currently polling higher than Jill Stein, I guess those two things cancel each other out, right? And furthermore, if you're actually worried that our vote for Jill Stein will lead to a Trump presidency, then I've said this to many other people before, but get off your ass right now. Stop interviewing all those people and go knock on some doors, sign up some new voters who are willing to vote for Hillary Clinton, and stop complaining about what we're going to do, because we have a choice. I could vote for whoever the hell I want to. If I want to write in my dog, I could do that. This is a free country. I could vote for anyone who I want to. So rather than badgering people about not voting for your favorite candidate, go sign up some new voters who agree with you. That's how you win elections. That's how Bernie Sanders overcame a 60-point deficit by us doing grassroots activism, phone banking, knocking on doors. Why can't you do that for Hillary Clinton? You can't just coast off of her name recognition the entire time. Actually put in some goddamn work if you're afraid of Donald Trump. Now, one person in there said that if they didn't want Trump to win, they should have let Bernie have the nomination. And she said, well, that's not how voting works. And besides, Bernie won the platform. And look, I agree that you can't just anoint Bernie Sanders as the nominee because he polls better than Donald Trump. What does he look like, Hillary Clinton? But the platform is not really a win. Is it the case that, we can kind of give a thumbs up? Woohoo, thank you, Democrats, you gave us a progressive platform. Yeah, I can be excited about that, but we know realistically that the Democrats will probably not follow through on many of those promises because they did it because they wanted Bernie Sanders to drop out and endorse Hillary Clinton. So they were willing to offer him anything. So, and since Bernie Sanders, he's not one of those people who can be bribed with a cabinet position, well, this was a concession. So that's all this was. So I don't really believe that they're going to follow through with any of these policies that they say they will. Now, they did interview the one guy who said Hillary has literally stolen everything Bernie said word for word. And then the correspondent said, well, isn't that a good thing? Well, it would be if we believed anything she says. And of course, she narrated over it and said, just say you think she's a bitch, implying that he's sexist. Now, this is another way to diminish someone's argument without looking at the merits of it. Imagine if anyone who I disagreed with on this podcast had just said, meh, I'm not going to really look into your argument or talk about your concerns, so you're homophobic because you disagree with me since I'm a gay dude. Wouldn't that be obnoxious? Because rather than addressing someone's concerns and the substance of their arguments, I'm just saying, you know what? I'm not going to address it. Homophobe. That's not how you have political dialogue in a democracy. You actually have to hear people out. Now, is it the case that homophobia, sexism, racism is still rampant in this country? Absolutely. But when you're looking at Bernie Sanders supporters, who are the most progressive proportion of the electorate, well, to say that they're sexist is honestly offensive, because I wouldn't be in a community with people who I think are sexist or homophobic, because clearly I am a gay person. I don't be around people that don't like me. That's just, I'm not a self-hater. So it's just frustrating that they keep trying to push this misogyny narrative. Now, is it the case that some Bernie Sanders supporters are sexist? Yes, but I mean, there are some Trump supporters, Hillary supporters, John Kasich supporters who are also sexist. But by and large, many people who wanted Bernie Sanders, they were initially supporting Elizabeth Warren. There was the We Want Elizabeth Warren campaign to draft her to run for president. And we're also voting for Jill Stein, who is a woman. So I just hate that they consistently use identity politics to downplay the concerns that people of lower classes have. Identity politics isn't everything. Someone who's very, very rich is more privileged than someone who is a straight white male who's poor. I mean, we have to realize this. There's nuance to the world. Now, there is a part where I actually disagree with the protesters, where they claim that Trump is the lesser of two evils. Now, I don't know how many Bernie Sanders supporters believe that Trump is the lesser of two evils. I disagree with that. I think that Hillary Clinton is clearly the lesser of two evils, and I'll explain why in a second. But they only showed one point of view. It's probably the case that many of them thought that Hillary was the lesser of two evils, but they didn't just want to show it, because these type of clips where you go and interview someone with a microphone and, you do the sneaky edits so that way you make them look stupid, they're meant for entertaining purposes, but they're not a representative sample of Bernie Sanders supporters. So I could take any scholar and edit them to look like idiots. But we know that that's not really true, and this isn't meant for anything more than entertainment purposes. But actually getting to why I think that they're wrong about Trump being the lesser of two evils, even though many of my viewers disagree with me, which is fine. But most of the arguments coming from people claiming that Trump is the lesser of two evils are banking on the false hope that Trump will somehow be less of a war hawk than Clinton. But I don't buy it. They both support Syrian no-fly zones. They both plan to ramp up the fight against ISIS, and Trump has stated that he would use nuclear weapons against ISIS. He said that he won't take using nuclear weapons against Europe off the table. He also wants to rip up the Iran deal, which would inevitably lead to them developing nuclear weapons and then us invading them. And he also has the temperament of an 8-year-old, so I don't trust him with the nuclear codes. So at best, you can make the case that they'll be equally war hawkish, even though I don't think Donald Trump will be the non-interventionist like he's claiming. But when you add in the bigotry that Donald Trump is espousing into the equation, I think that tips the scales in favor of Hillary Clinton being the lesser of two evils. And for me personally, that decision is easy because Donald Trump said that he would specifically appoint Supreme Court justices that would overturn the marriage equality ruling. I'm a gay dude. I don't support someone who is against my self-interest. Does that mean that Hillary Clinton is a gay rights activist like she claims? No, it doesn't. Bernie Sanders was way further on the issue of gay rights than Hillary Clinton is, but I can see who will actually destroy my rights and who won't. Hillary Clinton probably won't give us any progress on that, even though, I gave her credit for her evolution. But Donald Trump, he would actually take us backwards. And furthermore, I have family members who are Mexican, and I know people he wants to deport. I have Muslim friends who are terrified of him. And he also wants to punish women who have abortions and overturn Roe v. Wade. So, there's no way that I think this lunatic is the lesser of two evils. And I'm not willing to undo decades of social progress in the hopes that Trump might be less interventionist than Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump is not the ticket out of our corrupt system that he wants you to think he is. Now, does that make Hillary Clinton a more appealing candidate because Donald Trump is so crazy? No, I don't think it does. Hillary Clinton is someone who I view as very corrupt, very war hawkish, someone who's running in the wrong party. And if the Republicans were still where they were on the ideological spectrum of the 1980s, I think Hillary Clinton would fit in better with Republicans than Democrats. So I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm going to support Jill Stein. But with that being said, I can still be nuanced and have an opinion on who is the lesser of two evils of two people, one of which will become the president. You can disagree, and I disagree with the protesters in that segment, but you can make the case that maybe he's less war hawkish than Hillary Clinton. I don't buy it personally. But overall, this clip just illustrated the Democratic Party loyalism that we've come to expect from the mainstream media. And Samantha Bee didn't ask these protesters why they were so upset and why they couldn't support Hillary Clinton. I would bet that, there's no way to gauge this, but I would bet that many of them would just reluctantly support Hillary Clinton if it wasn't the case that the DNC rigged it. But by supporting Hillary Clinton after they did that, they feel as though they're endorsing corruption. They're endorsing whatever candidate that they put forward, and they are in a way. So, you can look at this election cycle objectively and say that Donald Trump is dangerous. But that doesn't mean that Hillary Clinton is just automatically good because Donald Trump is so dangerous. Hillary Clinton is a very flawed candidate. She shouldn't have run given that she was under FBI investigation. Now she came out clean, but if anyone else was under FBI investigation, if Bernie was under investigation by the FBI, do you think that the mainstream media and the political establishment would have been kind to him like they were to Hillary? No way. So this whole Democratic primary was just so unfair. It was so unfair. And, for that reason, they don't want to support Hillary Clinton. So by teasing them, you're not being funny. You're not going to persuade anyone to come over to your camp and vote for Hillary Clinton by treating them like shit. And this is something that Hillary Clinton supporters can't understand. But you're just not going to convince anyone. You're going to piss them off more because that's how the brain works psychologically. If someone is going to berate you, you're not going to be like, oh, okay, I agree with you. Thank you for berating me. Nobody ever is persuaded that way. So, this is just a really poor segment from Samantha Bee. And I honestly, as someone who was previously a fan of her, this knocked down my enthusiasm by a couple of pegs because, she's not being nuanced here. She's not looking at why they're upset at the DNC rigging, at the election fraud. It's so frustrating.